Okay, since we have covered attacking lower levels of infrastructure in the previous section, let's start from attacking the web server software. So, what is web server? Web server is the product that basically implements the communications of your web application with the outside world. Yeah, so it manages the resources, it provides network connectivity, it accounts for access. So it does all that housekeeping that is required for your application to be focusing on what's of most importance to it, right? To perform its business function. In order to attack the web server, we have to go through all the traditional phases of penetration testing activities. However, with some slight specifics, I would say, right? So bearing in mind that web servers are running on TCP service ports normally, we have to first go through web server identification by just manually connecting to those service ports, like port 80, port 443, ports 8080, port 8082 maybe, right? So everything that responds in a way that makes us wonder if it could be a web server has to be assessed further with this assumption in mind. Okay, so of course the first step we can take is scanning everything with the service version identification by Nmap, or running NICTA, which is quite a comprehensive scanning tool that is maybe lacking some modern functionality, but it deals with the service and web server identification really well. So grabbing banners, seeing what happens if we just type some HTTP methods and parameters, yeah, into the netcat once we connect to the TCP socket of the web server. So generating all this feedback, yeah, that may come from the web server, that may indicate an error condition, or may just provide some redirect URLs, or may just crash if we were lucky, right? All that activity is really important in order to narrow down the possible suggestions, yeah, about the nature of this web server, what is its type, what is its version, and so on. So once we have identified the web server software, we have to find information about basically three things. Yeah, so there are three common ways to get into this web server environment. Yeah, so if we are really unlucky and someone has just not just or has previously compromised that web server, we might possibly find these indicators of compromise, which could be some changes in configuration made in order to implement persistence in the system, or this could be these trivial web shell files that are placed into web server directories, and the attacker has not cleaned over after themselves. Okay, so that's what happens more often than we would like, but yeah, we cannot rely on actions of people who were previously interested in this web server, just because that if the attacker is of some class, okay, so if he knows what he is doing or she is doing, it would be expected from them to not only remove all the web shells that were used during the compromise of the web server, but of course they would patch the vulnerability itself. Yeah, so once you got control to something, you most probably would be interested in not letting any other people in. Okay, other way is just to search for non-vulnerabilities, and this is really essential here to know exact version numbers of web server software, and not to try anything just relying on your on the chance. Okay, it's not possible to let any entropy here, because trial and error is not what works best with attacking web servers, right? So the same exploit code, when run against different application software, can cause remote command execution or denial of service condition, which is not a good thing to do during a penetration test, because that's not what's expected from you, yeah, on the client side. So before doing that, before actually running any exploits against the web server, of course the client should be at least notified about that activity, and someone should be on the other side just monitoring the situation and being able to recover from the crash once it occurs. Okay, and the third way in is normally just guessing the passwords. Okay, so that can be done in different ways. Of course, default user credentials are the big problem, and Tomcat, user Tomcat and password Tomcat happens too much. Yeah. From the pen testing perspective, it's okay. It's okay to find out that some host in LAN has default credentials, but yeah, people are hiring penetration testers not to be beaten up. Yep. So that's not what is good essentially within the penetration testing activities. So people are trying to find out where they stand on the scale from bad to very, very good. Yeah. So if you just show them that something is really wrong, maybe that's not the best takeaway from the penetration testing report. So maybe it's a good idea to prepare the clients beforehand, before the engagement, and say, guys, before we start, we are not really interested in reporting default credentials to you. So would you please go and check whether everything is okay, and make the task somewhat more challenging for us. So if the default credentials are there, or if you are able to pick up brute force or just guess the password from the list, you are getting in as well. And what you do then, normally you just deploy a web shell in order to provide some basic functionality for yourself, right? You just want to run the commands, the operating system shell commands, in the context of the web server for some period of time, until you get the data you need and leave the host alone, or you understand that you have to use it to a larger extent, and then you have to arrange some persistence. So in that case, you most probably will require deploying some SSH public keys, or creating some backdoors that you shouldn't forget about before you get away from the system, right? So that's all what's going on after that, and we will discuss that further in bigger detail. For now, you have to understand that when you successfully compromise the web server, most probably that won't be a straight to the ring 0 exploit, right? So you won't be able to get to the root permissions directly. So if you need that, you most probably will require some privilege escalation exploit on the system, because running in the context of the current user, the web server user, will be somewhat limiting. So if you are at the application level like Apache, you most probably will get some access to at least the configuration files of different web applications. Yeah, so if that is configured by default or misconfigured, you will get that. Okay, so you will, for example, be able maybe to connect to get the credentials that the web application uses in the database management system in order to operate with its backend database. Okay, so that's cool. That's already the value provided to the client, because basically getting to the data, straight to the data, can be really business critical. No, that depends on the business mission of the web application, of course, but that can be anything from credit card numbers to privacy data to healthcare data and so on. So that yeah, that's really valuable, and maybe you won't be required to proceed and escalate to root level. Why? You already have all the data you need.